Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm acrylic artist Joni Young, and today I'm going to show you how to paint this really pretty tropical landscape. Here are the colors we're going to use, and I'll have a full list of all the materials down below in the description box. Working on 11 by 14 double primed stretched canvas. I'm going to use my large flat brush, squeeze out some phthalo blue across the top. With a little bit of water, I'm going to pull back and forth nice long strokes, creating the darkest part of the sky at the top, and then a line right down here for the horizon. Now I want the sky to go from dark blue to light blue, so I'm going to take some white and squeeze that out directly onto the canvas. Pick it up with my brush that still has some blue in it, a little bit of water, and blend softly back and forth, side to side, and then up on an angle a little bit. Gives a little bit more movement in the sky. Add a little bit more white again, make it lighter and lighter. So working quickly like this with your brush back and forth really fast gets you that soft, smooth, blended look in the sky. I'm going to just pull a little line right under the horizon. Get a bit of water and do that again. And I'm going to switch over to my Filbert brush now. And what I'm going to do is just get my brush a little bit wet, dry off the drips on the towel, and just start scrubbing gently or scumbling off some of that blue and white paint, leaving the canvas underneath showing, and these will be little subtle clouds. Later on we'll add a little bit of titanium white, but this is a nice little technique, an easy way of creating clouds in your sky, making them look really soft. You just scumble it off a bit and then wipe all that excess paint off on your towel. You can also clean your brush off in between each time, but it's not really necessary. As long as you just wipe it off on that towel, it'll be fine. And I'm going to do this a little bit up here. I'm not going to be adding any white paint to this later on. I just want to create a little bit of a lighter cloud effect up here, a little bit softer looking. Okay, now after cleaning my brush, I'm going to squeeze out a line of turquoise. I'll go back to my clean flat brush and I'll start pulling that paint back and forth, side to side, and then I'm going to come and curve over down towards the bottom left corner of the canvas. This gives us a nice perspective and shape to our little beach island. And we're going to add some white now, right onto that canvas. Place my brush flat, barely touch, and drag, almost like you're using a palette knife. In fact, you could use a palette knife for this if you want. So we just want it to get lighter and lighter as it comes up onto that sand and that beach, and will just kind of disappear and fade off right into that sand, making it look so shallow and making that water look really inviting. Now wherever I want to have the water looking a little bit deeper or a little bit more shallow, then I'm going to scrape off or just kind of pull off some of that excess paint and dab it off on my towel, and this will leave some darker patches, maybe for some coral reefs or just some deeper areas in the water. This will just make your water look more interesting and the painting overall more interesting. So I'm going to squeeze out some titanium white, and I'm just going to use the corner of my brush, and I'll show you right here. Dab it into the white and tap, tap, tap for little clouds far off into the distance. So easy. People always overthink and get intimidated by painting clouds, but they're one of the easiest things to paint. We're going to keep it really simple and just leave our clouds right in this area here. And I'll just brush softly back and forth. Get a little bit on the edge there. Pick up a little bit more white and make this area a little bit lighter. Now to make it look like there's some movement in the water and it's coming up on the shore, soft, subtle little waves. Just kind of pull your brush around softly in little wavy motions. Okay, let's wash our brush out now really well. And I'm going to take some of my neon orange, mix it with a little bit of that white, and we'll just add a little tint to our beach. I always like to make my beaches have a nice warm peachy glow to them. When you first look at it at first glance, it's just white, but there's always a little tint of a warm yellow or that warm peachy neon orange. I've got my light ultramarine blue. I'm going to take a little bit of that and I'm going to add that right above the horizon, just for another color to our sky, and it's very complementary to the greens that we're going to be using and that little hint of neon orange. So we'll pull softly back and forth, get it nice and blended. We're also going to be using this same color for some shadows on the beach from the palm trees. And then wherever we want to have some shadows in the water, we can just pull and drag a little line here and there of that blue. All right, now it's time to start using our sap green and build up all our palm trees and our foliage on this island. So I'm going to squeeze out a few little dabs right onto the canvas on this right side. And I'm going to use my little Filbert brush, tap, 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 up to the top. We're going to have a nice big group of palm trees right over here and some nice little shadows casting down below from them. So we want to have this dark, rich sap green under all the light, bright greens and yellows that we're going to add in for highlights after. We'll pull one long sweeping palm tree right in here, pull and flick all these little arches for the palm leaves, and I'll just do that roughly right now. Get my shadow color in here. So we need this for shadow and contrast. We want to have that nice deep sap green. Looks so inviting. We'll add some shadows down here. We might change that color a little bit later on by adding some light ultramarine blue to it. And I want this area back here to be a little bit darker, but that's not the right color. There's too much green on there, so I'm just going to try and take some of that off, which I can easily do because the paint is still wet. So just wipe it off and onto the towel. Okay. So I'm going to take a little bit more of that light ultramarine blue and go right over top of that line up there in the horizon. Wherever you want a shadow, you can add that blue. It'll be really pretty. I'm going to switch over to my liner brush now. You can use any liner brush that you're comfortable with using. Squeeze out some more of my neon orange, light grass green, and my cadmium yellow. I'm using Winsor & Newton today, and this is a cadmium yellow warm. And it is somewhat translucent or transparent. So when I'm using it, if I really want it to show up, I'm going to have to tint it with a little bit of white. just going to wash this liner brush off really quick. Pick up white and neon orange, mix those two colors together and pull out for my tree trunk on my palm tree. And it's okay if it's blending in and mixing in with that green. So just a few little lines here for some tree trunks. And sometimes when I'm pulling these lines in, I'm taking the paint off underneath, and that works too, because as long as you're getting a light color there, you can see it, it's standing out. And then I go back for more white, yellow, and orange, pull and flick little skinny arches. We'll start building up the highlights, all that light and shadow, and palm leaves. Wash my brush off, and now I'm going to switch over to another brush and start coming in with more details on these trees. I've got my mini fan brush here. It's a really fun one to use for palm trees. So I'm going to pull right into that cad yellow and the light grass green and just start flicking and pulling off each one of these little arch lines that we've added on the tops of these trees. So pull and flick. And don't worry if your palm leaves look a little bit messy. They can go in different directions because it's usually breezy on a tropical island, so it's blowing them in all different ways. So we're barely touching the canvas. If we push too hard with our brush, we're just going to push into that dark green and our highlights won't work. So you want to do this very gently and very lightly. And I like painting wet on wet for the reason that you can get so many more tones and shades. So every time I add the yellow and the light green and the white, it's slightly picking up that sap green underneath and making more shades of green. And it just makes your painting a little bit more realistic and interesting. So I'm going to reapply my brush quite often. I'm using a lot of paint for these. And I'll just continue doing this, beginning another palm leaf, all different directions. Some of them are going to look a little bit darker and some of them are going to have really bright highlights on them. I'm going to go back to my liner brush now, pick up a little bit of orange, yellow, and white, and do skinny little lines for the center of each palm leaf. And you don't have to do every single one, but this line you want it to be in the middle of each palm leaf. It'll be the brightest part. And then you can do individual little palm leaves and little lines. This just helps you create all those light and dark areas, light and shadow and contrast. I'll wash my brush off and pick up a little bit more of that peachy color I made. And we'll just add a few little dabs here and there of that. And then I'm going to switch over to my Filbert brush, pick up the orange and some white again, and add a little bit more of a glow, that warm peachy glow to the sand. And a few more shadows. So just a little line. You can take, if you put on too much like I have here, you can just pull it off right away very easily. And then with my clean brush, I'm taking light ultramarine blue again, and I'm going to use this as the color for our shadows. So just a little patch right here, and then I'm going to add some right above the horizon again, very softly underneath those clouds. It's okay if you pick up a little bit of that green. I'm just going to soften this area, this little shadow up a little bit more here. If you want your shadows a little bit lighter, by all means you can add a little bit of titanium white to your blue. And then I'm just going to tap in some foliage down here for some more shadows and just a little bit of a different color to break up all that green. I've got another mini fan brush that I'm using. I'm going to take my cadmium yellow and I'll start pulling and flicking some more palm leaves in here. Now I'm going to take a bit of white with it this time. So you see how we change up, all the palm leaves are kind of different. You want to think about that when you're painting trees and foliage and even sky and water. You don't want it to all be the same color. Make it interesting. Think about where light and shadows fall and how that changes the tone. And I'm turning my brush around to make the palm leaves go in different directions. Even add a few little highlights down here at the base of the trees. Just tapping lightly. Small little flicks too. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. I think I want to add a little bit of a warm glow, soft peachy glow to some of our clouds. So that wasn't bright enough. I'm going to pick up a little bit more white and try that again. So very lightly, dabbing and pulling. Maybe soften up this area right here. Just taking more light ultramarine blue and pulling it right above that horizon again. So I think we're almost finished this painting. I've just got a couple more things to do. I'm going to work on these shadows just a little bit more. Just want to soften that green that we have there by adding more blue. And then I'll just place the excess paint right up on that horizon line. And I've got a little bit of phthalo blue, just a tiny bit, to darken this up a little bit more. That helps to make everything stand out better too. Makes the water look deeper back there, or almost give the illusion that maybe there's an island back there in the distance. Gives us more of a separation from water to sky. Back to my liner brush. More cadmium yellow. A little bit of white. So sometimes I hop around from one thing to the next in a painting in order for something to have enough time to dry a little bit. So the paint is still slightly wet, but it's at that stage where I can now add some highlights that I know are really gonna stick now and really show up. And this is getting to the end of our painting, so I want to add these final little details in here. That peachy color for the tree trunks. Okay, I'll get more of the peach color and just add it down here in the sand, right around my little shadows. Now back to a Filbert brush, more white. I'm going to tap in some more light on these clouds. Very subtle. And then a little bit of that light ultramarine blue right underneath. And I'm just pulling into the wet paint to create little lines. Then I'm going to go to my really long liner brush and take a little dab of that sap green and start tapping in for some deep dark shadows in here. This way we'll get more of a contrast and our highlights will stand out even better. So we'll just sneak a little bit right in here. So just by doing these small little things, it makes such a big difference. Got a little bit of water on my brush just to help get that paint to flow nicely. Pick up some yellow and add just a few little flicks right on this palm leaf here. So as I add the last details of this painting, I want to thank you guys so much again for joining me. I hope you get inspired to paint this, and like this video, comment below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you very soon in my next video. Bye for now guys, happy painting!